Okay, friends, in the last video, we left off on chunk summary number 3, where we talked about slope-intercept form and graphing and writing equations in slope-intercept form and all of that jazz. So the next part we're going to talk about is point-slope form. So point-slope form is a little bit harder to remember than y equals mx plus b, which is slope-intercept form. It's actually y minus y1, and m equals m parentheses x minus x1. And it's a form of the line involving a point and a slope, where the point is x1 comma y1, and the slope is whatever m is. Okay, so just to get you guys situated and introduced to point slope form, we're going to actually just practice writing equations in point slope form. So this y and this x, they always stay y and x. They never, ever, 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 ever change. Okay, so if I'm looking at A, I'm going to have y minus something equals m times x minus something. Okay, that's the skeleton that just goes around with it every single time. Okay, so I see that a line has a slope of a half. That's my m. So I'm going to put 1/2 where m goes in point slope form. It always goes in front of the parentheses, so I put 1/2 there. Then I have a point 3 comma -2. So I see 3, that's an x coordinate, and -2, that's a y coordinate. So this is x1 and y1. Okay, so where x1 is, that's 3. So I'm going to put 3 where x1 is, and I'm going to keep the minus sign. And then where the y2 is, I'm going to put -2, because that's -2. I also know that whenever I see two negatives next to each other, that makes that positive. So I'm going to make that into a plus sign. And right there, folks, that is point slope. Okay, let's do one more together. So B, what is the equation of the line that passes through -4, 1 and 2, 3? So sometimes we might actually have to find the slope, which is what we did in the very first chunk we've ever done. So we're going to plug that into the slope formula, which from the first page was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now I need to plug that into the slope formula. I know that -4 is an x1 and 1 is a y1, and 2 is an x2 and 3 is a y2. And now all I have to do is plug that into my slope formula. So I get 3 minus 1 over 2 minus -4. Two negatives next to each other make a +4. And then that gives me 2 over 6, which then reduces to be 1/3. That's my m. Now I just have to plug that into point slope form. Now whatever we decided was x1 and y1, that's the point that we're going to use to put into point slope form. So what doesn't change is the y minus something equals something, parentheses, x minus something. All I got to do now is plug in my m and my x1 and my y1. So my m, which is my slope, is 1/3, so that goes here. My x1 was -4, so I put -4 in for x1. I see two negatives, which make a positive, and then I see a +1, so I'm just going to put 1 right there. And that's it. That's point slope form. It's done. Okay, so now your job is to do C and D. Those are your try-its. So try it out, and then try your chunk summary number 4. It's very little. It's very baby. And then I will meet you in the next chunk. Okay, back for the next chunk. So to sketch a linear equation in point slope form, we need to find out what the point is, what the x1 and the y1 is, and the slope. Now, if you notice, we're always taking the opposite signs of stuff. So if I look at number 1, I know that my m is -2/3. My slope is -2/3, but I need to now know what the point is. What's the point? I don't even know. Let's figure out what the point is. So I need to locate my x1 and my y1. I know that the y1 is with the y and my x1 is with the x. And I know the only way in order for this to be positive is I had to have two negatives next to each other. So that means this guy's got to be negative. So it's -1, comma, and I also know that this guy, in order for it to be negative, has to mean that there was only one negative sign, which means this 3 was positive. So my point is -1, 3. You basically just take the opposite signs of what you see, okay? So I'm going to graph -1, 3. -1 is on the x-axis because we always do x before we do y. So -1 and then up 3. That's my first point. And now I just need to graph my rise over run from that point. Okay? Now you guys know me, I like to do the negative on the top. Or maybe you don't know that, but now you know. If you didn't listen to the first video, now you know. So we're going to go actually down 2 from this point. 1, 2, and then right 3. 1, 2, 3. And there we go. And if we want to keep making it straight, we can go down 2 more. 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3. And now all we have to do is just connect our dots. Oops. Sometimes our lines don't look very pretty, but that's okay. All right, let's do number 2. Sketch the graph of y minus 3 equals -5 times x plus 1. So I first need to figure out what my slope is. I'll do it in blue this time. So my slope is -5, but whenever we have a whole number, we always put a 1 under it. And then I need to know what my point is. So this guy right here is my y1, and this guy right here is my x1. How did I get the same point? Okay, well, the opposite of +1 is -1. Opposite of -3 is +3. And now I'm going to graph that point, -1, 3. And if you didn't get some deja vu before, you should, because it's the exact same point as in number 1. And now we're going to do our rise over run. I'm going to go down 5, and I'm going to run 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. Let's go down some more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. It end up right there. So, ish. And you guessed it, number 3 and number 4 are your try-its. So just try it out. It's okay to get them wrong, okay? Just come with them tried. And then go ahead and attempt summary number 5. Again, keeping them short for you guys. And then go ahead and meet me on the back. Okay, so if you haven't noticed, numbers 1, 2, and 3, we've all seen before. You should have seen them before because we already did them. We put these in point slope form. Now we are going to convert point slope form into slope intercept form. So what I need you guys to do is go back to the chunk where we went over this. So your first chunk on point slope form, first chunk of this video, and write down the equations that you got for point slope form. I'm going to do that for number 1 and number 2. I'm going to pause and I'll be right back with the answers we got for number 1 and number 2 at the beginning of the video so that we can convert those into slope intercept form. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, I'm back with my answers for number 1 and number 2 from the other side. So this is point slope form right here. We did this already, okay? We did it in the first part of the video. This right here is answer number 1, point slope form. Now, in order for us to convert into slope-intercept form, we have to do what we did in topic 1, and we have to distribute and get y by itself. So to get to slope-intercept form, I need to distribute the slope, okay? So I'm going to have y plus 2 equals, and then I'm going to take the 1/2 and the x, so I get 1/2 x, and then half of -3. And I can convert that to a decimal if I want to. Sometimes it's easier that way. So I know that 3 divided by 2 is 1/2. So I'm going to just go ahead and say -1/2. Okay. Now we're almost there, guys. Now all I have to do is do the inverse operation. I just have to take the opposite of addition, and that's subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 2 from either side. And we'll just say 2.0 here just to make my life easier. And those 2's are going to cancel. And my slope-intercept form is y equals 1/2 x minus 3.5. Or 3.5 is fine. Okay, this is slope-intercept form. That's it. Look at that. So if you're not a fan of graphing point-slope form, now you can convert it into slope-intercept form and be happier. Let's do B. So I wrote down the answer to B from what we got before in the video. I'll do it in green so it doesn't bleed around. First step again is to distribute. So I'm going to distribute the slope into my x's. So I get y minus 1 equals 1/3 x plus, and this time I'm going to keep it a fraction. Again, you can convert it to a decimal if you want to. It would just be 1.333333 repeating. Okay, and now all I'm going to do is do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. So I'm going to add 1 on either side. And then my slope-intercept form would be y equals 1/3 x plus, whenever you're adding a whole number to a fraction, that's my favorite. This would just be 1 and 1/3, right? So 1 plus 1 is 2, and then we just keep the 1/3. And that's it. If you are like Missy, I hate the fractions, boo fractions, convert to a decimal like I did in A. It's not going to matter, okay? Fractions and decimals, it really doesn't matter to me. Pick your favorite, okay? So you're going to take your answers for number 3 and number 4 and try it. Yay! And then try your chunk summary number 6. Oh my goodness, so many chunk summaries. And then make a question or connection. And just like that, we just finished 2 chapters. Woo! All right. Come with your try-its done so we can talk about them on Friday. Okay? Bye!